In June 1978, the FIFA World Cup came to Argentina. 70,000 fans packed the stadiums. Millions more watched on television around the world. The greatest footballers on the planet competed for the most coveted trophy in sport, and Argentina, the host nation, won. It should have been a perfect story. A country welcoming the world, a team rising to the occasion on home soil, a triumph that a nation would celebrate for generations. But the closer you look at the 1978 World Cup, the more questions appear. Questions that have never fully been answered, and questions that most football history books prefer not to ask. To understand what happened in Argentina in 1978, you need to go back to March 24, 1976. On that day, the democratically elected government of Argentina was overthrown in a military coup. General Jorge Rafael Videla took power. What followed was one of the darkest chapters in South American history, a period the regime itself called the National Reorganization Process, but which history remembers by a different name, the Dirty War. Over the years that followed, the regime systematically targeted anyone it considered a threat: students, journalists, union workers, teachers, artists. People disappeared in the night, taken from their homes, their workplaces, their cars. Human rights organizations estimate that between 15,000 and 30,000 people were killed or disappeared during this period. Most were never found. And yet, in the middle of all of this, a World Cup was coming. Argentina had been awarded hosting rights back in 1966, when the country was still a democracy. But by the time 1978 arrived, the regime was firmly in control. And Videla understood something important. Football was not just a sport in Argentina, it was the air the country breathed, the language everyone spoke. If Argentina could win the World Cup on home soil, the regime would have something powerful, something that money and military force alone could never buy: legitimacy. The government poured $700 million into the tournament. 3 new stadiums were built. Communications infrastructure was overhauled. Entire neighborhoods near the stadiums were forcibly cleared, kept out of sight of foreign visitors and cameras. FIFA President João Havelange arrived on May 23, 1978, and told the local press, "I am among those that most depended on the hard work that your country undertook, and I have not been disappointed." The tournament began on June 1st. Videla himself inaugurated what he called the World Cup for Peace, using the biggest sporting event on the planet to present his regime to the world. More than 70,000 people filled the stands. A national day off was declared so that no Argentine would miss the opening match. And in the Plaza de Mayo, about 40 blocks from the stadium, a small group of women in white headscarves walked in silence, carrying photographs of people who had vanished. They were called the Mothers of the Plaza de Mayo. They had been doing this every Thursday since 1977. Nobody on television mentioned them. On the pitch, Argentina made their way through the tournament with a combination of quality, passion, and, as many would later argue, something more. In the first round, all of Argentina's matches kicked off at night. This meant they always played after the other teams in their group had finished, giving them the precise knowledge of what result they needed. The practice drew immediate criticism from other coaches. Hungary's manager said before the tournament, "Everything, even the air, is in favor of Argentina." FIFA would later change the rules so that final group matches were played simultaneously. But not until after 1978. Argentina advanced from the first round. But the most controversial moment of the entire tournament was still to come. In the second round, which also used a group format at the time, Argentina and Brazil were level on points going into their final matches. Brazil played their last game first, beating Poland 3-1. Their goal difference meant that Argentina would need to beat Peru by at least 4 goals to reach the final. Argentina's match kicked off more than 2 hours after Brazil's had finished, Everyone in the stadium already knew the number. 4 goals, minimum. What happened next remains one of the most studied and debated results in the history of the World Cup. The night before the match, Peru's players slept poorly. Without warning, the security guards and military police protecting their hotel disappeared. Argentine fans circled the building blasting horns and chanting well past midnight. The following afternoon, the bus taking the Peruvian team to the stadium got lost multiple times. A journey that should have taken 30 minutes took more than 2 hours. And before the match, Argentine President Videla visited the Peruvian dressing room, accompanied by Henry Kissinger, the former American Secretary of State. He read the players a message of Latin American brotherhood from the Peruvian military leader. Peru's goalkeeper that night was Ramon Quiroga. He had been born in Argentina. Argentina won the match 6-0. 2 goals from Mario Kempes, 2 from Leopoldo Luque, 1 each from Alberto Tarantini and René Haussmann. The crowd erupted. The nation celebrated. Argentina had reached the World Cup final. The questions started almost immediately. Reports emerged that in the lead-up to the match, the Argentine government had shipped 35,000 tons of grain to Peru. The Central Bank of Argentina had released $50 million in frozen Peruvian assets. A former Peruvian senator later testified in court that a deal had been made between the two military regimes. Peru would allow Argentina to advance in exchange for Argentina receiving 13 Peruvian political prisoners. Some Peruvian players denied everything. Others, in the decades that followed, told a different story. Former Peruvian player Juan Carlos Oblitas later stated, his presence in the dressing room was terrible. Some of the younger players stopped changing to listen to him. No conclusive evidence of match fixing has ever been proven in court, but the questions have never gone away either. Because the circumstantial evidence, the timing, the visits, the economic deals, the hotel incidents, the bus that got lost, adds up to something that is very difficult to explain away. Argentina beat the Netherlands 3-1 in the final. Mario Kempes, the long-haired striker they called the Matador, scored twice. Daniel Passarella lifted the trophy. The crowd went wild. Ticker tape rained down from the stands, and General Videla stood in the VIP box and received a standing ovation. Argentine defender Ricardo Villa later said, "There is no doubt we were used politically." His teammate Leopoldo Luque said, "With what I know now, I cannot say I am proud of my victory. But I did not realize. Most of us did not. We just played football." Less than a mile from the River Plate Stadium, where the final was played, stood a building called the Navy School of Mechanics. It was a detention center. While Daniel Passarella lifted the World Cup trophy, an estimated 5,000 people had passed through that building. Fewer than 150 survived. Some of those prisoners, torn between pride and horror, heard the roar of the crowd through the walls as Argentina scored. The 1978 World Cup did not create Argentina's dictatorship, and it did not end it. But for a few weeks, it gave the regime exactly what it needed. The world was watching Argentina, and the world saw football. That is what they left out of the history books.